What's up, everyone? Rayamo here with another anime review. This is going to be on Rewrite's fourth episode, or episode 17, depending on how you're structuring, the videos. I personally do it by the second season number, so we're going past 13 and into 17, if I'm not wrong. But anyways, today is the start of basically Rewrite's Terra arc, the Terra route, and this episode is what really got to me. So this episode did a great job at explaining what everyone was confused about when they're asking, what do you mean that Kotarou was an unsociable, unlikable, asshole-ish type of guy? Well, this episode explains that this is who Kotarou was before he went into that coma. And apparently, if you're an anime only, you're going to assume that maybe Kotori did rewrite his personality after he got absolutely wrecked by the key. And in the beginning of this episode, we see him, slightly as an adult, in a full body armor, full equipment, all out with soldiers fighting other soldiers in what seems to be the desert, and what seems to also be the middle in a Eastern country. They're talking about that if that car starts driving towards us, if we're gonna have to shoot it down because it's a suicide bomber. And this is obviously going to be the darkest arc, the finale of Rewrite. And this entire episode was essentially setting it up that way and showing us how different this Kotarou is compared to the ones that we know. Now, a lot of people that may like Kotarou's more comedic self, Moon in the 13 episode arc, which a lot of people aren't giving a second season a chance because of how poorly the first season did, but they should definitely finish it. It has flaws, but it's not absolute pure trash. I'm looking at Yusuke Days, and the second season entirely makes up for it with all of his explanations of what's happening, and it kind of does hand wave away the friggin' the terrible first season in a way. It basically fixes it and bumps the rating up for me. Even though I'm a visual novel player, I thoroughly enjoyed what the first season was. It's an adaptation that can't be perfect. It obviously has to run on a schedule, even though they've been given the reign to do all the arcs, the routes of rewriting an anime. They obviously had to do time constraints on the first season, which it's understandable, but the way that they did it was very, very, very bad. They should have just went all anime original and just thrown in plot elements slightly from the routes instead of doing it through the visual novel. Or then I think they ran out of time. That's essentially they ran out of episodes for the first season to build up the characters, and so it was all up to the second season, the Moon arc, that basically we got all the information dumps, we got all the explanations, and in a way the first season truly mirrors the visual novel arcs in some retrospect, because in certain routes you don't learn everything. There's routes where Kotaru learns a lot, there's routes where Kotaru he barely learns anything. Shizuru's arc, I would say that he doesn't really do much, and that's kind of what reminds me of the first season. He doesn't do much. He sits in one place. He's constantly relying on others for support instead of relying on he has his rewrite powers, he has his Aurora ability, his claws, but he doesn't utilize it to the fullest of his capabilities, as he's more focused on protecting himself and Kagari instead of in the other routes where he actively participates alongside the girls, whether it be Chihaya's Unlimited Blade Works route, Kane's route, or even Shizuru. He does a pretty good amount of things, but he does some things in the first season, and so it kind of mirrors the bad endings, the sad bittersweet endings of the visual novels in a way. But in Terra, the starting of this, we get to see a new side of Kotarou, as I said before, and basically a lot more of who he is, what his parents are doing, and an explanation as to why he's so like this. Now, he's an antisocial person. He's failed to fit into society. Everyone's having friends. He has no friends except for Isaka, who essentially said, okay, I'll give you my number, and we could be email pals. And so, essentially what happens is that this is obviously going to drag him into the Hunters, as we see, basically, what he says, in the previous, of him being, hey, I am going to... I fought as part of Gaia, I fought as part of Guardian, and so, the routes diverged anyway, but we're going to see some very, very important, information and events going to prop up. He meets Akane, he meets Kotori in this episode, and, I haven't played, Terra, Rewrite in a while, and haven't played Terra, in a while as well, and so I don't really remember if there were any, sprites for Kotaro's parents, or, the caretaker of Akane, which she obviously has a crush on. And the only reason, and there's a scene where he and his parents are at the Martell announcement group and they're talking. He says, "Hey, ask a question, make us look good." And then he sees Injo, I think that's her name, the blue haired girl, look back at him, and he basically blushes and he raises his hand and says, "Wouldn't humanity be better off dead for the planet, for Earth to get to continue living at its best?" And he gets slapped. And so we have to see this dynamic between his happy-go-lucky self, kind of from the first and second season, and see more of his childhood and what he really is like and what's going on. So that his parents are obviously brainwashed members of the Gaia cult. I call them a cult because that's essentially what they are. They're wearing robes, they're doing chants. It's parallel to the superhumans of Guardian, which we obviously don't know much about if you're an anime watcher. But we're obviously going to get some information about them and their main objective, which is killing the key to prevent salvation. Gaia is to let salvation happen by getting the key and amplifying her powers through the song of salvation. I can't even remember the name of the name of the thing, but it's a great way to start off this episode. Like it wasn't as action packed. There was action packed scenes. We get to see Kotarou, an ability of Kotarou we've never seen before, which is very similar to his his Aurora blades. It's like made out of his blood. As we get to see a demonstration of hunting down this bloodstick and leech, and him just basically say, "Here, have some of my blood," and just like spearing it, manipulating his blood, so to say. And then he could also make his claws. But he has to literally bite, have a place where blood flows in order for him to create that. And so he's basically going on a joyride where he eventually, rewrites himself to be able to jump high and have super strength and all of that. And he encounters, the dinosaurs that we're all familiar with that nearly kill him, but he kills one by having those spikes of his blood shoot out. And he's like, "Okay, I'm not afraid of dying. I think that would be a preferable idea." And so he gets asked this question by, Injo, the caretaker, when he's walking with her. The other kids and stuff, and says, wouldn't Earth be better off without humanity? As we're basically contributing nothing to it, and we're basically doing more harm than good, and we're not, providing anything to help it advance, so to say. And to see how depressed Kotarou is and how he doesn't really want to live, and that he's basically living his life like a robot, essentially. Like he makes a comment saying that he's flailing around like a fish nearly every day, and that's how he gets through. Seeing all these happy people with their friends, there's him by himself. And his interactions with Kotarou this episode really hammer home the point of what she said during the first episode of the moon arc, where we're doing her route, and she says that the Kotarou she knows was moody, unsociable. He didn't care about anyone else. He was looking out for himself and all that. And we get to see that all forefront here. Now I'm really digging the opening and ending songs of the Terra arc. I really do think it fits well. I mean, the opening just gets you hyped to see what happens to Kotarou in the future. I mean, that beginning scene, I clearly remember that, with him being in the convoy of everything. It's just great. Like, it's a giant shift tone. It's the darkest of the rewrite, arcs. I'm really looking forward to see what happens. And, it's just great to see Kotarou back, but in his Edgelord form. That's what a lot of people who read the visual novel call this version of Kotarou, the Edgelord Kotarou. And I can see why. Though I just think he's just a depressed loner who just needs some friends in order to pave the way through, because he seems genuinely depressed. That's what, from I read the original novel, from what I've seen from the episode, I have to conclude that he's genuinely depressed because he has no one to relate to, no one to hang out, no one to listen to him out. And so that's why he became like this. He has to put up with his incessant parents, like, things with them going to Martell and them being essentially dragging him along even though he doesn't want to. He has some friends, he just walks by, gives a look to one of the students there, and they just give, and the one, we all know who he is, and just gives him the stink eye. He says, "Oh, nothing. What do you want?" "No, nothing." And we see him, helping a little kid version of Yoshino get his wallet back. He says, "What kind of rock do you are? How do you get so strong?" And he's just so confused. Kotarou sees that, and she immediately shows her intelligence at this age. She's in grade school, calling him scum, saying she doesn't like people who do violence and all that. It's just very refreshing to see, all these characters before they're fully mature, and what really is going on before the events of the first season, which is, this is technically after the first season because of what happened in the previous episode, but it'll get a bit confusing. But I think it's safe to say that they'll explain things in due process. And that's really about much it for my review of Rewrite's fourth episode, or episode 17, depending on how you're structuring it. I'm really genuinely impressed of how they handled this episode. Sure, there were some weird, cuts But I think the pacing flowed very well with a lot of Kotaro's in monologues. A lot of people don't like his monologues, saying that this show is a failure because it shows things through exposition instead of action. There's only so much that you can do with a visual novel adaptation, doing the let's show through actions rather than words. And what makes rewrite so great is that you can hear the inner monologue, the inner thoughts of Kotaro because you're him, and just seeing it that way. I'm glad that they're doing it this way, even though it might bore people. Like, people have dropped it out of sheer boredom. I think episode 2 was probably my example of not much action to like the last few minutes, and there's a bunch of exposition and information drops. And I have to say, I've seen videos where some reviewers are saying, the average viewer has a very short attention span. So like all these action oriented anime, whether it be Sword Art Online, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, catch their attention more because something interesting has happened. So it's like picking up and reading a book. I had this topic come up in history in English saying that people are, picking up more electronics and less of a book because it's not as stimulatingly engaging compared to the apps that are, visually appealing to you, so you want to operate it as more. And, Fahrenheit 451, 87, I think, yeah, Orwellian, societies and all that. Yeah, it's just very interesting to see in a way how all this stuff is coming together in real life as well. But I'm going a bit off topic here, so I'm just going to end the review right now. But I am genuinely impressed with this episode. I love the opening and ending song. The opening especially, it just shows so much, and we get to see Kotaro's and Dote. So when people say anime characters don't grow up, well, Kotaro was a prime example of that. Just compare him right now, his more, I guess, moified self to his more adult, serious looking self. I mean, he's looking like a badass in the opening and all that. And so, without further ado, I'm ending the review right now. These are just my opinions and my thoughts on the episode of Rewrite episode 4 and the starting episode of Terra. What did you guys think of the episode? Do you agree with me? Did you disagree with me? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Comment down below, your thoughts on it as well. You also show support for the channel. Leaving a like, subscribing if you haven't already, and just a reminder, if you haven't already, tick that little bell to get notifications every time I upload a video. Follow me on Twitter, do updates and stuff on there. Whoa, excuse me. And share the video as well. You can also support me on Patreon. It's not required. But, if you want, there's the Patreon link right there. And I think I would just be ending this video right now. Hope to see you all in the next video. I am out. See ya.